Every story hides a secret. Welcome to Silent Revenge Stories. Some moments shatter your life into a before and an after. For me, it was a Tuesday afternoon, 13 years ago. The smell of freshly baked cookies filled my kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the window, and three small, boisterous bundles of joy, my grandchildren, Jamal, Aisha, and little Michael Jr., were coloring at my kitchen table. My daughter, Michelle, had dropped them off, promising to be back in an hour. She never came back. That hour stretched into 13 years, transforming me from a grandmother into a mother, and them from children into the very heart of my existence. I never imagined that the daughter who abandoned them would one day return, not with remorse, but with an accusation that would shake our world to its core. My name is Beatrice B. Johnson. I am 73 years old, and my story is about a mother's love that grew beyond blood, and a betrayal that went deeper than abandonment. That Tuesday, Michelle had seemed agitated. "Mum," she'd said, rushing through the door, her eyes darting around. "I just need you to watch them for an hour. Something urgent came up. I'll be right back." She kissed the children, a hurried peck on each head, and was out the door before I could even ask what was so urgent. An hour passed, then 2. Then a frantic phone call to her cell, which went straight to voicemail. Days turned into a week into a month. Michelle had simply vanished. Her apartment was empty. Her job was abandoned. She left no note, no forwarding address, no explanation. Just a lingering scent of cheap perfume and 3 bewildered children who missed their mother. I didn't hesitate. They were my flesh and blood, my grandchildren. I packed up their small bags, brought them to my cozy 3-bedroom home, and began to raise them. Jamal, the oldest, was 7, fiercely protective. Aisha, 5, a little ray of sunshine, and Michael Jr., barely 3, who still called out for Mama in his sleep. I taught them, fed them, loved them with every fiber of my being. Their parents might have disappeared, but they would always have me. Life wasn't easy. I was a widow, relying on a modest pension and the occasional substitute teaching job. But we made it work. My garden blossomed, providing fresh vegetables. My sewing machine hummed late into the night, mending clothes and crafting costumes. We were a family, forged not by choice, but by necessity, and bound by a love stronger than any legal document. 13 years later, Jamal was 20, a talented musician in college. Aisha, 18, was heading to nursing school, and Michael Jr., 16, was a budding basketball star. They were good kids, kind, resilient, and fiercely loyal to their Mama B. The memory of Michelle was a faint shadow, rarely spoken of, mostly forgotten. Then the doorbell rang. It was a crisp morning in late September. I opened the door to find Michelle standing there. But this wasn't the Michelle I remembered. Her eyes were hard, her face taut with a new kind of brittle elegance. Beside her stood a tall, intimidating man in a sharp suit, a lawyer. "Hello, Mum," Michelle said, her voice unnaturally flat. "These are my children, and I'm here to take them back." My breath caught in my throat. I stared at her, then at the lawyer, then back at Michelle. The audacity of it was breathtaking. She had abandoned them, vanished for over a decade, and now she was here, demanding them back as if they were forgotten luggage. Take them back. I finally managed to whisper, my voice shaking. "You left them, Michelle. You abandoned them for 13 years. Legally, Mum," the lawyer interjected, his voice cold and precise, Abandonment requires intent. My client was experiencing a medical emergency and was unable to return for her children. Furthermore, there are no formal adoption papers. You have no legal guardianship. You kidnapped them. Kidnapped them. The words hit me like a physical blow. My heart, which had swelled with love for these children, now ached with betrayal. My daughter, the woman I had given birth to, was accusing me of being a criminal. Not yet, I said, my voice steadying, a quiet fury beginning to simmer within me. They don't know about this yet. Michelle smirked. You really think a judge will let an old woman with a pension keep 3 adult children from their biological mother, especially when you have no legal claim? You have nothing. She thought I was powerless. She thought I was just an old woman, easily discarded, easily manipulated. She had no idea about the secret I had carried for 13 years. A secret that would not only prove her to be a liar, but would shatter the very foundation of her. Malicious claim, my first call was not to an enraged relative. It was to Elijah Vance, my late husband's lawyer and my most trusted confidant. He had been quietly managing my affairs, always prepared for this very day. Elijah, I said, my voice filled with a calm resolve. It's B, she's back, and she's calling it kidnapping. I knew this day would come, Elijah replied, his voice grim. Did you show her the envelope? Not yet, I confirmed. I wanted her to say her piece first. Let her dig her own grave. The envelope. My husband, George, had been a brilliant, quiet man. A former postal worker, he understood the ironclad truth of a sealed, date-stamped, certified letter. 13 years ago, just 2 weeks after Michelle disappeared, I found it in his old safe deposit box, along with his will. It was addressed to me in his neat handwriting, sealed and dated a month before his sudden passing. Inside, there was a single, folded letter. It was from Michelle, a confession typed and signed by her. It detailed her intent to abandon the children, her desire to start a new life, free from the burden of motherhood. It even included a crude, handwritten waiver of her parental rights, witnessed by a notary public. More importantly, it had a certified mail receipt attached, proving she had sent it to George, ensuring its date was irrefutable. This was the secret, the hidden truth I had carried for over a decade. George, my wise, quiet husband, had foreseen his own daughter's capacity for cruelty. He had ensured I had the ammunition to fight back, should she ever return to reclaim what she had so callously thrown away. The envelope contained not just a letter, but the absolute, undeniable proof of her abandonment. The subpoena arrived 2 days later. Michelle was pushing for an emergency hearing, confident in her legal position. She wanted her children back, not out of love, but out of a perverse sense of ownership, or perhaps a new financial motive I couldn't yet fathom. I walked into the courtroom, my 3 grandchildren by my side. Jamal, Aisha, and Michael Jr. were confused and angry. They knew nothing of Michelle's claim, only that their Mama B was being dragged into court by a ghost from the past. The courtroom was packed. Michelle sat at the plaintiff's table, looking self-assured, flanked by her smirking lawyer. She avoided my gaze. The judge, a formidable woman named Justice Ava Reynolds, looked down from her bench. Mrs. Johnson, she began, her voice firm. Your daughter, Ms. Michelle Johnson, has filed a petition claiming you illegally withheld her children for 13 years. Do you have anything to say? I stood up straight, my gaze unwavering. Yes, Your Honor, I replied, my voice clear and steady. I have this. I reached into my bag and pulled out a worn, yellowing envelope. It was sealed and clearly marked with a certified mail date stamp from 13 years ago. I handed it to Elijah, who then presented it to the bailiff. The bailiff handed it to the judge. Justice Reynolds opened the envelope, her brow furrowed in curiosity. She pulled out the single sheet of paper, read it, then reread it, her eyes widening with each word. A gasp escaped her lips. She looked up from the document, her gaze fixed on Michelle, then on me. Justice Reynolds asked, "Do they know about this?" I looked at my grandchildren, standing tall and confused beside me, their young lives hanging in the balance. I replied, "Not yet, Your Honor." The revelation hung in the air, a bomb about to detonate. The courtroom fell utterly silent. Michelle's lawyer's face had gone pale. Michelle herself looked like she'd seen a ghost. They had no idea what was in that envelope, and neither did my grandchildren, but they were all about to find out. The silence in the courtroom was a living thing, thick and heavy with anticipation. Justice Reynolds held the letter, her gaze shifting from my face to Michelle's, then to the 3 young adults standing beside me, whose entire history was about to be rewritten. "Ms. Johnson," the judge said, her voice now devoid of any judicial neutrality, replaced by a cold, hard anger, "you have filed a petition claiming you were the victim of a kidnapping. You have accused your own mother of a heinous crime. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Michelle said, though her voice trembled. Her eyes locked on the yellowed envelope in the judge's hand. "Then I believe this courtroom, and more importantly, your children, deserve to hear the contents of this letter," Justice Reynolds declared. She cleared her throat and began to read, her voice ringing with an authority that was both legal and moral. To George Johnson, she read, "This letter is to confirm my intentions. As of today, October 28, 2012, I am voluntarily and permanently relinquishing all parental rights and responsibilities for my 3 children, Jamal, Aisha, and Michael Jr. I am starting a new life, a life where I am not burdened by motherhood. I cannot and will not be a mother to them any longer. They are now the sole responsibility of my own mother, Beatrice Johnson. I have enclosed a notarized waiver to this effect. Do not try to find me. Michelle Johnson." Every word was a hammer blow. I felt Aisha flinch beside me, her hand flying to her mouth. Michael Jr. took a half-step back, as if the words themselves had pushed him. But it was Jamal, my oldest, who reacted with a visible, gut-wrenching finality. His face, which had been a mask of confusion and anger at me, crumbled. The betrayal was so absolute, so stark, that it left no room for interpretation. He looked at Michelle, this woman who was a stranger to him, and the last flicker of a childhood memory of a mother died in his eyes. He saw her, for the first time, as she truly was. Michelle was ashen. Her lawyer was frantically shuffling papers, his entire case having been vaporized by a single 13-year-old piece of mail. "This document," the judge continued, her voice like cracking ice, "is accompanied by a certified mail receipt, date-stamped by the United States Postal Service, and a notarized waiver of parental rights. It is not just a letter. It is an irrefutable legal declaration of intent. You did not suffer a medical emergency, Ms. Johnson. You executed a plan." The judge looked down at Michelle, her gaze withering. "Your petition is not just dismissed. It is an insult to this court and to the very concept of motherhood. You have perjured yourself and attempted to perpetrate a fraud upon this family. I am ordering you to pay all of your mother's legal fees. Now, get out of my courtroom before I hold you in contempt." Michelle stumbled out, a ghost of a woman, her lawyer scurrying behind her. The battle was won. But as I looked at the devastated faces of my grandchildren, I knew the war for their hearts had just begun. We drove home in a thick, painful silence. When we walked into the house, the home I had raised them in, it felt different. The truth had changed the very air we breathed. Ayesha was the first to break, collapsing onto the sofa in a storm of sobs. Michael Jr. just stood in the middle of the room, looking lost. Jamal, however, was filled with a cold, hard rage. "Why?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Why didn't you ever tell us, Mama B? We thought, for 13 years, we thought she was missing or hurt. We never knew, she just threw us away." "Because you were children," I said softly, my own heart aching for them, "and you didn't deserve to carry the weight of her choice. My job was to love you, to raise you, to give you a life where you felt wanted. The truth would have only poisoned that, but it was a lie." He shot back, the pain lashing out. "No," I said firmly, meeting his gaze. "It was a protection. The love was real. This family, right here in this room, is real. Her leaving is the only thing that was a lie." That night, for the first time, we talked. We talked for hours about the anger, the hurt, the confusion. They asked to see the letter. I let them read it, to touch the cold reality of their mother's words. It was a painful, necessary cleansing. By the time the sun rose, we were exhausted, but we were united. The shadow of Michelle, the ghost of the missing mother, had been replaced by the stark truth of the woman who had chosen to leave. The next day, Elijah Vance came to the house. He brought coffee, pastries, and a second, even more devastating revelation. "There's more to this, B," he said grimly, after the kids had gone to their rooms. "Michelle didn't just come back because she suddenly missed her children. She came back for money." He explained the true, hidden secret. My late husband, George, had not been a wealthy man, but his own father had been. He had left George a substantial inheritance, which George, a simple man who distrusted wealth, had placed into a complex generational trust fund. This fund was set to mature and pay out on a very specific date, Jamal's 21st birthday, which was in 2 weeks. The trust is to be divided equally among George's direct grandchildren, Elijah explained, sliding a document across the table to me. "It's a life-changing amount of money for each of them. We're talking millions. But here's the catch," George put in. "Until each child reaches the age of 25, their portion of the trust is to be managed by their legal guardian." The ugly truth slammed into me. Michelle had returned not out of love, but out of a calculated, monstrous greed. She had timed her reappearance perfectly. She planned to use the courts to regain legal guardianship just in time to seize control of her children's inheritance. She wasn't just trying to take her children back. "B," Elijah said, his voice filled with contempt. "She was trying to rob them." I sat there, the full scope of her depravity washing over me. She had come back to use her children as keys to a vault, children she had thrown away like trash 13 years ago. "The court case is over," I said, a new, cold resolve hardening my voice. "But this is not. She will not touch a single penny of their father's legacy." My counterattack, the one I had been unknowingly preparing for, began that afternoon. My plan was not just to protect the money, but to teach my daughter a final, unforgettable lesson about the true meaning of motherhood and the consequences of abandonment. "Elijah," I said. I want you to do two things. First, I want you to file an emergency petition to have me formally recognized as the children's legal guardian, using Michelle's letter of abandonment as irrefutable proof. We need to legally sever her from them and their inheritance, permanently. Consider it done, he said. Second, I continued, I want you to find her. I want to know where she's staying, what her financial situation is. I want to know everything. She came here for a war. It's time she faced the opposing general. The information came back within a day. Michelle was living in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, her lawyer having abandoned her after the public humiliation in court. She was nearly broke, having spent her last reserves on this failed legal gamble. She was cornered, desperate, and alone. Perfect. A week later, on the day before Jamal's 21st birthday, I made my move. I didn't send a lawyer. I didn't send a letter. I went myself. I drove to that run-down motel, a place that smelled of stale cigarettes and despair, and I knocked on the door of room 207. Michelle opened it. When she saw me, her face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, fear, and then a flicker of desperate, pathetic hope. She thought I had come to offer a truce, a handout. Mama. She whispered. Hello, Michelle, I said, my voice calm and even. We need to talk. Not as mother and daughter, but as two women with a legal matter to discuss. I walked into the small, grimy room, and the final confrontation, the one 13 years in the making, was about to begin. Michelle stared at me from across the small, grimy motel room, her expression a pathetic mix of fear and a desperate, flickering hope. She thought I had come to offer a lifeline. She had no idea I had come to sever the final tie. A legal matter, she repeated, her voice a weak imitation of her once confident tone. Mama, please. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was desperate, desperate. I asked, my voice dangerously calm as I took a seat on the room's only, slightly stained chair. You weren't desperate 13 years ago, Michelle. You were selfish. You threw away 3 beautiful children because they were an inconvenience to your pursuit of a new life. And you weren't desperate when you walked into that courtroom. You were greedy. You came back not for your children, but for their money. The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial whisper. Did you really think I didn't know about your father's trust fund? Did you think I wouldn't know it was set to pay out on Jamal's 21st birthday, which is tomorrow? You've timed your return perfectly. You thought you could swoop in, play the victim, reclaim legal guardianship, and get your hands on millions of dollars that belong to the children you abandoned. Her silence was a confession. The final, ugly layer of her betrayal was exposed, and she had no defense. You didn't just abandon them, Michelle, I continued, the words like chips of ice. You came back to rob them. You are not their mother. You are a predator. And my grandchildren are no longer your prey. She finally broke, collapsing onto the edge of the lumpy bed in a storm of ragged, hopeless sobs. What are you going to do to me? She cried. I am going to give you the one thing you gave your children 13 years ago, I replied. A choice. A chance to disappear. I reached into my purse and pulled out a plain white envelope. I placed it on the small, rickety table between us. Inside that envelope is a one-way bus ticket to any city in the continental United States. There is also $5,000 in cash. It is enough for you to start over again, to find a new life just like you wanted. She looked up, a flicker of disbelief in her tear-filled eyes. But there are conditions, I said, my voice leaving no room for negotiation. You will take that ticket and you will leave tonight. You will never contact me or your children again. You will legally and formally relinquish all parental rights. For a second and final time, in a document Elijah will have delivered to you on that bus, you will become a ghost to us, just as you chose to be for 13 years. This is not a negotiation. It is your only way out. And if I don't, she whispered. If you don't, I said, my voice as hard as steel, then I will not only use your letter of abandonment to have you declared legally unfit, but I will also present evidence of your attempt to fraudulently seize control of a multi-million-dollar trust fund. You will not just lose your children, you will go to prison. The choice is yours. A new life of anonymity or a cell. She stared at the envelope, then at me. She saw no love, no pity, no weakness to exploit. She saw only the end of the road. With a trembling hand, she reached out and took the envelope. You will be a better mother to them than I ever was, she whispered, a final, broken admission of her failure. I already am, I replied. I stood up and walked out of that sad little room without looking back, leaving her to the life she had chosen twice. The next day was Jamal's 21st birthday. I did not tell them about their mother's final, pathetic departure. Today was not about her. It was about them. I took the three of them to Elijah Vance's grand book-lined office. They were nervous, unsure why they were there. Mama B, what is this about? Aisha asked, her hand finding mine. This, I said with a warm smile, is about your grandfather. Elijah greeted us and led us into his conference room. On the table were 3 thick, leather-bound portfolios. Jamal, Aisha, Michael Jr., Elijah began, his voice formal but kind. Your grandfather, George Johnson, was a man of great foresight and deep love. Before he passed, he established a significant trust fund to secure your futures. That trust has now matured. Today, on Jamal's 21st birthday, the assets are to be released to you. He opened the portfolios. They detailed a fortune that was beyond their wildest dreams. Stocks, bonds, real estate holdings, millions of dollars for each of them. They stared at the numbers, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. This is all. For us, Jamal stammered, looking from the papers to me. It always was, I said softly. Your grandfather wanted to ensure you would always be taken care of. But then Elijah cleared his throat. There is, however, a letter from your grandfather, a final instruction that he asked you to read together on this day. He handed Jamal a sealed envelope. Jamal opened it, his hands shaking slightly, and read it aloud. My dearest grandchildren, the letter began. If you are reading this, then I am gone, but my love for you remains. This money is my gift to you. It is the fruit of a lifetime of hard work. It is meant to be a foundation, not a hammock. I have watched your mother make choices that have broken my heart. I have seen how the pursuit of easy money can poison the soul. Do not make her mistakes. This fortune gives you freedom. The freedom to pursue your dreams, to get an education, to build something of your own. But its true purpose is to give you the freedom to be good people, to be kind, to be generous, and above all, to take care of the one person who has never, not for a single second, stopped taking care of you. Your Mama B, she is my true legacy. Do not fail her as your mother did. The room was silent, thick with emotion. The money was no longer just a windfall. It was a responsibility, a sacred trust. Jamal looked up from the letter, his eyes filled with tears, but also with a new, fierce determination I had never seen before. He looked at me, his gaze steady. "We won't, Grandpa," he whispered to the air. Then he turned to me. "We won't fail you, Mama B, ever." That was 6 months ago. As I speak to you now, my life has been transformed. The very next day, my grandchildren came to me with a plan. They didn't want sports cars or designer clothes. Jamal, using a portion of his inheritance, bought this house from me, the home I had raised him in. Not to live in, but to give back to me, the deed now unassailably in his name. With a legal document stating I have the right to live here for the rest of my life. A home should belong to the person who built it with love, he had said. Aisha, instead of just going to nursing school, used her funds to set up a scholarship for other aspiring nurses from low-income families. And Michael Jr. is using his to quietly fund a local youth basketball league, keeping kids off the streets. They didn't just inherit their grandfather's money. They inherited his heart. And what of Michelle? I do not know where she went, and I do not ask. Her story is her own now. My story is here, in this house, filled with the laughter of the children I raised, the children who chose me back. They are not a burden. They are my blessing. They are my true legacy. My daughter left them for an hour, but she gave me a family for a lifetime. Did you like my story? I'd love to know what you think and which city you're listening from. Please let me know in the comments. If you want to support my work so I can keep bringing you more stories like this, you can send a super thanks. Your support means the world to me. On the screen now are 2 more stories I think you'll love. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more. Until next time.